Hello and Happy New Year. Can't get any worse than the last one, can it? Here to hopefully see it in properly, get it started well, are me, Alex, and Paula, as always. So this week, the first week of 2021, and episode number 11. We're going to talk about the games we've beaten, retired, and are currently playing. We're going to have a quick chat about our 2021 gaming goals for the year ahead, and we'll take a question from the forums before we move on to the hit sensation game show game. Say it with me.
How long to beat the game?
The game.
So close.
That actually seemed all right. Close. We're getting there.
It's probably better on your end than mine.
Honestly, on my end,
I guess it's bad on their end. I don't know.
I'm giving you both like a 3-second lag, and it seems to sort of work. Dear me. Right. Speaking of number threes, I'm going to be very greedy and move straight into what I've beaten this week.
Yeah,
so I've got 3 games that I've beaten. And the first one, thank you very much, Paula, is Inbento, which those of you that listen on the regular will know that I bought during the recording last week. And I think smashed out in about 4 days. Just sunk its little cat claws right in. It is a puzzler about making sushi boxes, making bento boxes. And it's very, very clever. It's not particularly reinventing the wheel. It's all stuff that if you're an avid puzzle player, you will have seen sort of before. But it's all about the presentation. It's just fucking adorable. And the music's nice. The visuals are nice. Tells a better story than Florence. And I will die on that hill. Actually does. I don't even care. And it's like £2 on the App Store. So if you want a puzzle game for when we're allowed to go outside again, it's a great one to pick. And I mean, how are you finding it, Alex? Because you're, if we jump ahead, teeny bit in the middle of it right now, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm playing it. Yeah. I liked it. I bought it too because I was like, oh, this sounds fun. It was on sale. It was so cheap. I was like, why not? And I'm enjoying it. I don't know if I'll beat it. I mean, I might, but like I'm kind of a puzzle game. I tend to like just kind of, I don't know. I start them. I get to a point where it gets like a little too tough, and I go, okay, I'm done. That's sort of like how I like to go in it, especially when there's no no real story per se. Like in this, there is, but like not really. So like, I'm just kind of like, okay. But who knows? Maybe I will beat it. I think it's really worth it. Like if people want a good little puzzler, like you're saying, this is a game that's totally worth it. Cute. So quick and easy to understand, but then also throws really interesting kind of curveballs at you, and does require a lot of like some interesting spatial reasoning. Like you really have to think sort of, weirdly enough, you kind of have to think 3-dimensionally with the game. Despite the fact that you're creating a 2D surface, you're often putting like pieces, and you're like have to think about like the layers of it. And I find that's like really cool puzzle design. Yeah. So I don't know. The minute that you feel like you're like, I know how to nail these puzzles, they throw something like kind of new at you, and you're like, oh shit, wait, what? I always dig that.
When you have to think outside of the bento box.
Oh,
hey, that's magic.
Okay, I'll see myself.
So basically, thank you for the recommendation, Paula. It's great.
I'm so glad you two liked it. Oh my god, I killed Rick.
Oh dear, man! I just remember you messaging me when you bought it. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. I was worried after the Florence. I thought you'd hate it again, but no, it's great. And to be fair, like I'm quite similar to you, Alex. Where in a puzzle game, I generally will sort of bounce off it, sort of around the half to 2/3 point, where things start to get just a little bit. Whether it's too easy and it just becomes repetitive, it's like, right, I know what I need to do, and it just feels like a chore to do it, or the other way where it just becomes like a moon logic situation. But I feel like the curve on this one's really well pitched.
It is, yeah. And
which is, yeah.
Oh, sorry. It does this great thing too, where it actually, you don't have to like play one level. It'll unlock a couple levels each time. So you can like jump ahead if you get stuck on something, which I find really useful because sometimes my brain just needs to like step away from a puzzle. And then when I come back, it's like, oh, got it, you know? And so I kind of hate puzzle games where they're just like, no, you have to fight this level and then this level and then this level, you know? And you're like, give me some choice here. So I really liked it for that. I thought that was really good.
Yeah, 100%. So the second one I beat, which again is another one that you've played, Alex, is Blasphemous. And it's a weird one because I had a great time with it, but I would struggle to recommend it. And I think I said this on the forums. The problem is that it's a Metroidvania, and that is like the one genre where there's just an embarrassment of sort of riches in terms of 9 out of 10s and 10 out of 10s. And there's a million games that you would recommend before Blasphemous. As great as it is, and as unique as it is in the sense that where a lot of Metroidvanias, particularly I've played a lot of like the Eagavania sort of Symphony of the Night, Aria of Sorrow kind of mold, where you're quite mobile, you're quite flexible, you've got a real sort of variety of attack stuff, and actually quite early on you become very powerful, and it's just about exploring and picking up all these movement options and that kind of thing. With Blasphemous, and I think you said this a couple of months back, it's very much less about the exploration and more about the combat. You actually are quite limited in movement options. So up until I got the 2 power-ups that sort of build new platforms and grow platforms, you know what I mean, I was convinced there was going to be a double jump based on some of the things that I couldn't get earlier on in the game, and there just isn't. And that I think exemplifies just how different it is in terms of movement. Like, you only get one fucking jump, and the combat, for fear of using a tired trope, is very Dark Soulsy. It's all about pattern recognition, counter and parry sort of thing, and it's good because it pulls in a different way than other Metroidvanias do. But it is also maybe a little bit short of something that you could say, all right, it's not a 10, but you have to play this because at its core, although it does things differently, it is still a Metroidvania. And as fun as the aesthetic and the audio are, they are great. Over a 16-hour experience, I just can't recommend it over a Symphony of the Night, over any of the handheld Castlevania games, over
Ori and the Will of the Wisp, frankly. Like, you know what I mean? Like the Ori games.
Yeah. But even ones I haven't played, like Hollow Knight, where I know I haven't played it, but I know everybody says it's a 10.
It's the best Metroidvania, hands down, in my opinion. Like, I'll defend that to the grave.
Yeah, and I mean, we're forgetting more games that if we remembered them, we would recommend them before Blasphemous. So it's it's probably the highest rated game that I can't recommend.
I know, it's so weird, right? Like, I'm in the same boat. I'm like, it's a good game, but there's just way better ones. You're just like, at that moment where you're like, I didn't not enjoy the experience, but it's kind of weird because it's almost like a step backwards in concepts. Because like when you think about it, Dark Souls was sort of like, and then again, I don't know, step backs are fine. Like I think it's all good to explore mechanics, but when you think about it, like Dark Souls is sort of taking the Castlevania idea and putting it into 3D and like in this sort of moving forward way, right? Where like you find shortcuts that reconnect the world. The world's kind of this one big connected thing, which is kind of like what a Castlevania game is, right? Except in Dark Souls, it was like less about the exploration and it became combat focused. So that was sort of the way that it moved forward. It was like, okay, let's take some of the Castlevania difficulties, the save rooms, and let's incorporate that and kind of expand on that and make that more of a chief like factor of the game. And then Blasphemous is sort of like, oh yeah, let's take the Dark Souls combat and let's just put it all back into 2D, right? And you're like, okay, but I think I see why it's not really done like that, because for some reason, because like it still kept the kind of the it was kind of like it was trying to have its whatever that expression is, its cake and eat it too.
Have its cake and eat it too.
Yeah, right. Because it's like it wants to have this big sprawling exploration map, but then at the same time, it's like, no, but I want to focus on combat, and so it's like, okay, but I still have to run through all these goddamn rooms, and I'm so slow. It's just like, I don't know. I wish it had just a little bit more of a balance between the exploration and the combat. It would have been nice if there was even just a touch, like maybe just one more exploration focused skill or something. You know what I mean? But yeah. Yeah,
I don't necessarily agree. I know what you mean. I think my biggest problem with it, and I did sort of have an issue with the fact that the Wikipedia sort of 3-paragraph summary told the story better than the game did.
Yeah.
As beautiful as it was, I didn't have a fucking clue what was going on until I read the Wikipedia after the fact. But my bigger problem was just that it felt a little bit directionless. And I suppose that sort of ties back into it. But the game does a very poor job of signposting.
Yeah.
So there were at least 2 occasions where I had to go to Google and be like, right, where am I actually able to go next to progress the main path. And that's partially because the map's a little bit deficient. It's good in some ways, it's deficient in others. And that's also partially because you don't have any kind of not even necessarily a quest log, but you don't have anything where it will say like, right, you need to do X. Like one of the things I loved about Bravely Default, which you couldn't get a more different game, but on the bottom screen, whenever you went into the menus, one of the side characters would be on the bottom. They just have a little speech bubble about, oh, we need to go and kill this boss, or come on, hurry up, we need to awaken the last crystal. And it's just like a nice little reminder to say, oh, you need to do X or Y. And I think Blasphemous could have really benefited from that. Also, anything to tell you what the side quests were doing, because again, I had to Google that. Didn't have a clue what was going on, and most of the collectibles are hidden behind these really arcane sort of fetch quest things that you need to do. And I wouldn't have necessarily minded doing them if the game had told me that I needed to do them rather than the internet. Yeah, but it is a good game ultimately.
I know. I was about to say, and yet we both enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's just a case of I can only recommend it if you've played all the other great Metroidvanias, or if you're someone like friend of the podcast Uwe, who is aware of the influences on that game, is really sort of enamored with the aesthetic and style. And if you look at that and hear some of that music and say, I want this in my veins, there's a great game alongside it. Unless you fall into those two camps, there's just other stuff that you should be playing first. So going from a game I wish I could recommend to a game that segue's fallen apart in my head. The last game I've beaten is an experience called Trover Saves the Universe. And I sort of hesitate to call it a game because the game part falls very short. So it is from one of the creators of Rick and Morty. Theoretically, it's an action-adventure game, but it's a VR experience with the game tacked on. The problem is it's also something that's sold as a VR sort of optional experience. So you can play it on a regular TV, which is what I did. I can't in good conscience recommend anybody play it that way because it just isn't geared like that. So the setup's fantastic. The game's writing in a different setting would be 10 out of 10. So is you are a chair orpian. So your thing is you never leave your chair. You sit in a moving chair. And that's how they get around the VR constraint of teleporting to nodes and things like that. And you're on this quest to rescue your dogs. And the setup's done well. I don't want to say too much more and do it justice. One example I maybe will give of the funny writing, they released some free DLC to go with it. And it's got a separate option in the main menu. And when you click on it, it says, this DLC is designed for people who've beaten the main game. So do that first. But hey, what do we know? We only made the fucking thing. and that kind of humor permeates. And it's good fun. But the game is a very simple sort of light attack, heavy attack, jump roll situation. And even that's sort of very loosely applied. You just feel like you're sort of walking between plot beats. And because you're moving between nodes, and in that sort of third-person setting, you feel like your camera should be on the person. Not only did I find myself getting lost from time to time, it actually also made me feel a little bit sick playing it in a couple of moments, which isn't something I expected without a headset on. Now, I don't know if it's better with a headset. The impressions that I got from some of the reviews I skimmed is that it is. But if you haven't got a headset, I just can't recommend it. I think you'd be better off sort of watching a playthrough or something. I think it's probably a good way to experience the writing that way. But
I've seen this one often. Like I have a PSVR, and honestly, I haven't touched that in a while. My PlayStation hasn't turned on since I got the Xbox, but it always rates really highly on the PlayStation Store. And like everyone I've seen, like when I first got PlayStation VR, it was like kind of a highlight. But you know, I see. I feel like also just in general, I can't recommend many VR games not in VR. You know what I mean? Like I know companies do this because they're like, fuck, we need some money. But it's like,
pretty much.
They're like, not enough people are buying the VR. And you're like, well, yeah, because it's like this emerging like luxury toy. So like, of course they're not.
And it's a whole chicken and egg thing where you need the games to sell the headsets, but without the headsets, you can't really make the games and so on and so forth. But I would be very interested to hear if you were ever to play it, how you found it with a headset, because I think I'd probably enjoy it a lot more that way.
I probably will play it one day.
Yeah, I mean, the game's serviceable. It's not bad. It's fine. And the writing is good. So the game sort of took about 6 hours, including the DLC. The DLC was a lot better because it just took the combat away. And it gave you like a small room with sort of a set of puzzles and gags and random things to do. Again, there were things in it that were clearly designed with the VR in mind. So one of the main mechanics for you as the Cherorpian, as sort of the protagonist, is that you can grab and move things in the world, but without the VR handles, that's tied to a reticle at the center of your screen, which only turns on when you're looking at something you can move. So one, it's very hard to aim the reticule sometimes because you're guessing where it might be on the screen. Two, some of the mechanics sort of expect motions of you that are much harder with a stick than they would be with VR controllers.
Gotcha.
So, but even then, excuse me, the DLC was a lot more fun than the main game. Yeah, I've gone around the houses there. Play it if you've got a headset, probably.
Nice.
Is where I'm going to leave that.
Well, one day when I play this game, I will return to let you know.
Yeah, well, as long as it's after 13 Sentinels Argus Rim.
Yeah, there we go. I'm waiting until basically once I get a PlayStation 5 some year. I don't know. It's probably when they announce a new SKU in years. That's when I'm going to go back and do all the PlayStation stuff. Paula, you haven't beaten anything this week, huh?
No, I haven't. I wanted to finish the Rim 2, but that happened. Exams happened. University happened. So yeah, all my gaming time this week have been dedicated to tipping away at other games that I'm already playing.
That's all right. Hey, look, that's like, the week when I had a new puppy, right? You guys picked up the slack from me. I did beat some stuff this week, and I beat 2 real good games. One of them is Call of the Sea, which is on Game Pass. And I wholeheartedly recommend this game to just everyone. This is a game that I think, especially if you find puzzle games difficult, this is an excellent introduction into puzzle games. If you love puzzle games, I think you will still really enjoy this game. It's a mystery adventure, and I would encourage individuals not to look too much up about this game because it's short. It's not going to take you very long. It's 5-6 hours. And the mystery is really satisfying. And it unravels very naturally. And it's better to just kind of go in not knowing much. All you really need to know is that it's the 1930s. You're this lady, British lady, whose husband has disappeared on an island out in the middle of the ocean. And you've gone to that island to find out what's happened. And the game unravels through puzzles and through this sort of classic sort of narrative unwinding. And it's really good. All the puzzles are so... I will say, in the later chapters, some of the puzzles get a little bit okay, they're not hard. They're just I got to do the puzzle thing. You know what I mean? But most of them are satisfying enough where it's for instance, I got stuck at one point and I was like, what do I have to do? And literally all it takes is it confines you well enough that you know that you just have to look around and really think outside the box to figure out what to do, and then it'll kind of snap into place. So I never got frustratingly stuck. I was really satisfyingly stuck, I guess. I don't know what to call it. There's this education philosophy thing about I can't remember the exact word, but there's the good stress of where it's something is just challenging enough to be satisfying, but it doesn't tip over into the frustration. And this game is always there. It's almost always at that this is just challenging enough level. And I like it. I will say one thing. Some of its dialogue is the stupidest shit I've ever heard. It's just so corny. Hold on. I wrote this down because it's one of the first lines that you hear. So this isn't a spoiler. This is one of the very first things that you hear in the game. And it goes, "I've had those dreams ever since my mother died and left me that music box in her will." I was thanks for the exposition, lady. I guess I know the stakes now. So it's a little bit of that at the beginning where it really paints it out for you, but then it gets much better. The voice actress is really good. She often comments on things that she's seeing, and sometimes it's stupid obvious. She'll comment on something that you're okay, yeah, no, I got that. You don't need to explain everything that we see. But then other times it's nice, colorful kind of filling in the blanks of things. I will say this might be slight spoilers, so people just plug your ears if you don't want to hear it. But essentially, there is a choice that that is to be made near the end of the game, and I think it's a bit of a false choice. It's just kind of like the game doesn't earn that choice that it asks you to make. So it didn't bother me in the end because I was like super satisfied with the game and its ending. But yeah, that would be my only gripe. I was like, I don't think you earned that. But yeah, good game. It's on Game Pass. It's free. Go play it.
Or £15.50
yeah,
for those of us who don't.
Or $1 for 3 months.
Wow, yeah, we're $1 for 3 months.
So yeah, loses a bit of steam in the later half, but very good. 6 hours, you can't go wrong. It was an excellent palate cleanser game, Like I had just come off playing KOTOR 2, and I was like, I want something kind of short and fun. And I was like, wow, it's beautiful. It's kind of cel shaded, but not really. Like it has that, I don't even know how to describe it, toyetic, like graphic design. Like it's just really beautiful and really nice. So anyway, that's Call of the Sea, which I played on the Xbox Series X. And then I also played Dishonored, Death of the Outsider, which is kind of like the end of the Dishonored series. Like, I don't know if Dishonored's coming back. I hope it is. I love that game. But there's Dishonored, Dishonored 2, and then Death of the Outsider. And the Outsider is this big character in the Dishonored games.
So is it like a standalone expansion?
Yeah, it's like Lost Legacy. It's like that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Right. I thought it was DLC for Dishonored 1, and then you started talking about the end of the franchise. I was like, there's a second, right? Right, okay, I'm with you now. I'm with you now.
See, actually, it is kind of like the Dishonored 1 DLC, because there's Dishonored 1 DLC where you get to play as Dowd. And I would say this is sort of like the sequel to that in a way, because you play as Megan or Billy Lurk, who's like Dowd's kind of apprentice. I know this is going over everyone's heads. If you're not big into Dishonored, we might not know this, but Dowd is a big assassin in the game. He's kind of an antagonist in the first one, but he sort of morphs into this kind of anti-hero sort of character, kind of. Megan is sort of his, I guess, apprentice. I don't even know what you call her. She's an assassin, and you play as her. It's more Dishonored. I don't even know what to say. It's just Dishonored. Like, you know what I mean? It's like 5 missions in pretty interesting places. Classic Dishonored gameplay where it lets you kind of do what you want. Her powers are like, she has like the blink power where like she can set up a decoy and then she can like teleport to that decoy, which is a little bit different than some of the powers in the other Dishonored ones, but pretty similar too. She's got like a foresight, she can like go out of her body and like look around and set up a decoy to like then teleport to. She can take other people's faces and walk around as a different person. Like, it's pretty cool. So there's just so many opportunities. I always go with no assassinations when I play those games, because I don't know, I just like the idea of like, can I sneak through the entire game and just like knock people out and never kill anyone? I might go back one day and just do like a murderous rampage through it, because the combat is pretty satisfying and you could do some fucked up shit to people in that game. So yeah, that's actually my only complaint. And I don't even know if it's really a complaint, but she's kind of this like ruthless assassin. But I guess this game is her sort of redemption arc game. But then at the same time, it doesn't have to be a redemption arc. You can go dark. I don't know. I don't know if I have a fully formed thought on this. Let's just put it this way. It's a game that involves the idea of chaos, right? In the Dishonored series. So like, when you set things ablaze, when you murder, when you rampage, when you do all this, you inflict more chaos into the world, is their concept. When you do less of that, when you leave less of a footprint on the world and you're a stealthier assassin, you cause less chaos because you put less into disarray. And so to get that good ending, it kind of, it's weird, right? Because it's like you can play any way you want, but really it's sort of putting the foot on and saying you should go through this and not kill anyone. But it's mission structured, so you can always just go back later and like play through and just do however you want. So I'm kind of rambling on this. Put it this way, I like this game a lot. Have any of you played the Dishonored games?
I haven't, but I do want to take that tangent slightly further, because they didn't initially plan to put the no kills in at all. So No Clip, who I've mentioned on this podcast a couple of times before, they do great sort of YouTube, Patreon-backed sort of documentary stuff. They did a big one on Arcane, the studio behind Dishonored and Prey that we all love, and among other things. And I remember there was a bit in that where they were talking about it being something that they added sort of midway through development. And then I think they planned to do it maybe for one of them as like a a feature option type thing. And then one of the developers said, well, we should probably do that for all of them. And whoever the creative lead was said, well, if you can think of creative ways for us to incorporate that for all of them, then we'll do it. And so it became like a challenge internally to how can we make each of these work as a not an actual assassination, but in such a way that you can still complete the mission. But it's one I want to get to eventually. Like everything, the backlog's a thing.
Totally. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I was just going to say it's super worth your time. Like I think Dishonored, Dishonored 2, Death of the Outside, they're all excellent, and they all are in like. And oh my gosh, they're so cheap now. And I bet you anything they're going to come to Game Pass very soon. You know, Bethesda publishes those. I have no doubt when that merger gets through, you're going to suddenly see the Arcane Collection pop up, right? But yeah, I mean, Death of the Outsider, because it's an expansion, I think when it came out, it had a slightly lukewarm reception because it wasn't full price, but it was kind of that Lost Legacy price. And I don't know. I think people were just, they kind of wanted, I think it was a case of genuinely where it's like, but we want more. Give us Dishonored 3, you know?
More? You want more?
Right. But I got it for like $10 and I was very pleased. I'm like, this is great. Anyway, that's it for me. Should we move on to what we've retired?
Yeah, sure. I feel like I cut you off before, Paula, though. Have you played these games or not?
Oh, yes. The Dishonored ones? No, I haven't.
Oh, crack on then. Ignore me. Sorry, go on.
That's all I said, that I haven't played them, so...
Oh, dear.
That's fair.
Well, I've just made more work for you in the edit.
No, that's fine. I'm leaving this in. This is how the sausage gets made.
Well, let me wind out the awkwardness by talking about my two sort of retirements, just quickly. So, they're both sort of to be continued. So the first one is Drill Dozer, which the problem with the post-game content is you kind of need to do a bit of grinding for money to buy access to those post-game levels. And I'm not really at the point where I can be arsed at the moment. I definitely do want to go back and play them, but I don't really want to do any of the money grinding to get there. So it's gone back on the pile. I will come back to it, but it's just parked while I've got Cyberpunk and a few other things going on. And Reky was kind of similar, although that was more a case of I just played sort of 4 games playing Inbento on and off, really loved that. And I just sort of couldn't face any more puzzling when I finished it. So as good as Reky is, it was kind of a case of, well, I'll come back to you when I'm more receptive to that kind of gameplay. So they're both gone but not forgotten, as it were. And then, again, Paula's been wasting her time with frivolous things like exams. So... no retirements for Paula.
Hey, you can't retire again. Maybe you don't play the games.
Wow,
okay.
That's very true.
That's so true.
That's roll tape right there. But you've got one, haven't you, Alex?
Yeah, this is actually for the exact reason we talked about earlier with puzzle games. I retired Grindstone. As I got to the later levels, like I'm quite far into it, into the like 130s or something in terms of the levels. But this is a game where you have to beat each level to progress. And I just got to a point now where it's not actually that it's so hard. It's just tedious because like there's a point now where you have to like maneuver your character to push certain blocks into a position. But again, you have to like chain a certain number of these little creatures in order to actually be able to move a block. And those creatures come randomly. So you just get to a point where it's like, it's so finicky and it just feels like I just sat there and I was like, is this what the rest of this goddamn game's going to be? Because like, this is just not fun. Like, I don't feel challenged. I just feel like I'm doing this because I have to. So I was like, goodbye. I enjoyed UI. I had you. And I still recommend this game is the thing because I still think it's really fun. And when it comes to puzzlers, not many, I don't know. There's not a lot of us who actually beat these games full through, right? Like, I mean, like Puzzle Quest, or you know what I mean? Like you play them until you're done. So that's it. I'm done with Grindstone.
This is the Spirit Track recommendation. Is what this is. Play it, don't finish it.
Yeah, exactly. Though I think it's easier not to finish this one than Spirit Tracks, right? Because like there's no story at all. So I didn't feel bad retiring it. I was just like, cool, I had fun. Whereas Spirit Tracks, if you don't finish it, you might feel kind of bad if you're like me. Shall we move on to what we're playing then?
Yes, should we tag Paula in because she's got stuff to talk about here?
Yeah.
Finally. I have games to talk about here. So I haven't been playing much in terms of hours, but I've been like slowly chipping away at some of my games. So got realized Grindstone no Kiseki. That's one I think I did a couple of scenarios in that game. Still struggling with Japanese here because I don't know. I could have played it in English, but that's who I am. I like to do the things the hard way. For The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, no quirks were collected this week, sadly. I played like, I don't know, 15 minutes. No shrines were found in either, so that's a shame. As for Fire Emblem, Tell Dragon and the Blade of Light, I think that's the one game I put like the most time into because I ended up buying it on the eShop for less than $6 because I had gold points. So I got it like for $3 or something like that. I actually caught up pretty quickly to where I was like on the emulator. It's kind of nice to have like names that make sense in English.
Were they kind of poorly translated in the other one, I'm guessing?
Yeah, they were like pretty like weirdly translated. I think like I'm trying to remember like an example that there was like one that was like weird. I can't recall like an example right now, but I remember like Lena was like Lena with the light R.
Oh, okay.
So they tried to do the transliteration. Yeah, see, you see this all the time in fan patches, right? Where what they'll do is they'll take the Japanese like katakana or the hiragana, and then they'll try to put it into English. Yeah, and so you get Lena turns into Rena, and it's like, I guess you're being literal, but like in Japan, that's not necessarily how they see the name, right? So yeah, interesting.
It's like a translation rather than a localization, isn't it?
Exactly.
There was a translation on that, but the localization on the Switch version is actually pretty nice.
I hope so. How long it took them to do
it? And like it looks nice. It's not like they actually took time to format the stuff like they should. I would be recommending the Switch version more if it wasn't because, limited.
Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that ROM's going to find its way onto the internet. I've just
it is 100% gonna do it. So yeah, past chapter. I think I'm in chapter 9 right now. Yeah, and so far I think I've recruited like all the recruitable characters so far and 0 death.
How do you find this game, like, as someone who's, played, like, all the DS ones, or even someone who, like, jumped into 3 Houses? Like, how do you find going back to playing the Famicom version?
A little bit of a rant here, because, like, I started playing with Awakening, and it was pretty fun. Then, the Fates trilogy... I have a bone to pick with those games because, like, there are, like, some mechanics from Awakening that make no fucking sense in Fates. Anyone who has played both will know. The children, yeah, pretty much. And there were, like, some fun stuff, like the My Castle thing. But it felt, like, really tacked on. Like, the bonuses were nice, but it felt like an afterthought a little bit. I loved like the difficulty like in Conquest. Like I think out of the trilogy, if you're gonna play one, it has to be Conquest.
Right. I agree. Yeah.
I don't want to be mean, but Revelations is pretty skippable.
I love it though. But anyway, I get it.
I love it, but
you're not wrong.
Yeah. I had fun with it while it lasted, and then it was like,
I'm just biased.
Like, and I hate myself because I'm gonna play it again because of my marathon that I'm doing now. And then Echoes Shadows of Valencia, that it was like beautiful, like old school difficulty with the dungeon crawling that I really adore. One of the reasons that I like RPGs. And I found that some of the classes that were kind of broken in other games had actually a nice balance. And Three Houses, I literally played like 2 hours, and I was like, I can't stand this game.
Interesting. Okay.
So it may have to do with this is not my first Fire Emblem game, and also I've actually finished Fire Emblem Awakening in normal, Lunatic, and Lunatic Classic.
Damn! That's some good shit there.
Rather you than me.
See,
The only difficulty I haven't beaten it yet is on Lunatic Plus.
What's the difference?
It is horrible because like all the enemies get like one of, I think it was like one of 4 abilities that was like Vantage Plus. The one that cuts the magic damage by half every time. The one that cuts like physical damage by half every time, and the one that can one hit KO you if you are not careful.
yeah.
And it's like a flip of a coin. So every single enemy gets like a randomized one of those. I got to chapter 5 and I restarted the chapter many times, but not once I got like the only combination with that was doable.
Oh, geez. See, I kind of agree with you, Paula, though. Like, I finished Three Houses completely. Like, I beat the game on one of the houses. And while I think the game is great, and I'm really glad that it's brought on a lot of new players, kind of like Awakening did, I also kind of finished it being like, oh, well, I like the DS one.
Oh, so it's just sort of an underwhelming kind of thing. Or...
Yeah, but
yes and no.
Continue.
Sorry, yeah, it is very good. Like, don't get me wrong, it's great. It's Fire Emblem. I think I don't know. I like the story more, I think, in Awakening. And I think I just like playing it on the DS a little more. There's just something about playing it on 3DS that's kind of nice. And yeah, I don't know. I don't want to be too hard on this because it is a good game. Like, play it, but I don't know. What were you going to say, Paula?
Oh, the reason that I stopped playing Treehouse, I'm gonna go back to it eventually and give it a second chance, but in a higher difficulty. First of all, was the difficulty. Like, at least from what I played, none of your agent units are like that EXP sponge that you have like at the beginning of the game, like a very strong character, but it levels up like at a really slow pace, and that like balances it out.
Yeah.
I found that all the characters level up like really fast. And like the general, like I think you do more damage than the enemy sometimes. Like even in matchups that don't make sense, because like if you go like with an axe and you attack a sword user, for example.
Yeah.
The sword user has an advantage. They can evade your attacks more and stuff like that. And I felt like that didn't happen as much in Three Houses.
Oh, well, Three Houses actually got rid of the entire weapon wheel thing. So, like, yeah, that's all gone. Yeah, so there's no advantages for any different types of weapon. Like, that's completely gone.
That's why I was able to flip like an entire map with a sword user, even though it didn't make sense at all.
Yeah.
There you go.
So that's an important thing to know, actually, because it's been a thing in every other one. But yeah, and I would actually recommend, if you play Three Houses and you're an experienced Fire Emblem player, play a difficulty up from like the normal one, because you're right, Paula. It's significantly easier than the other games are on the normal difficulty, which I think is because they're also just like, holy shit, big new audience, and so they might have done it for that reason. But anyway, I'm tempted to try this Famicom one. I'm still salty that they didn't just release it on NES Online, but whatever. At least it's only $8.
About the Famicom one, it is pretty solid. Like, so far, so good.
Nice.
Like, it is challenging, like that sweet spot, like just right. I feel.
Good.
And even though it's like a Famicom game, it still looks like pretty good. Like the animations here for the attacks are pretty good. Sometimes you get like a very goofy animation but I'll probably have to attach like a GIF of it because
Yes,
like some
please.
of the actors, like since you have limited pixels, you have to exaggerate like the motions and stuff, and how they voice like up and
Right.
down,
Oh,
like
yeah.
they're just going, and it is super funny.
I love that.
Oh no.
Nice. What was the other one that you're playing? I see another one here. What is this?
Oh, this is one I want to bring back from the grave of the retirement pile.
Mhm.
And that is the Room 2. It's the sequel to the Room that is a puzzle game where you are in this room with a puzzle box.
Okay.
So in the Room 1, you have like this one puzzle box that per room, and then you have like a final one that just keeps like getting harder and harder, and you start like moving stuff around, and suddenly it opens stuff in the other side of the box, and a puzzle box. In the Room 2, you have multiple like kind of like puzzle box like objects in one room.
Cool.
So it becomes more like of an escape room kind of a game. I initially retired because like I got to a section that was a little bit too creepy for my taste. But I grew up back from then, so I'm gonna try it again.
Yeah, those games look cool. I mean, that's kind of funny. It's like escape rooms are like returning to their. It's like the circle there, like it's like escape rooms were based off of video games, and now video games are being based off of escape rooms. The Ouroboros as it eats its own tail. Nice. Rick, do you want to regale us with what you're
Yeah, sure thing. So most of it is sort of stuff that's been rolling on for a little while. So I'm still playing Cyberpunk 2077. At the moment, it's very much sort of dip in and out. So like I'm conscious that there's a big patch coming this month. So while I am still enjoying it, while my PS4 is still blessed, I am very curious to see how that changes things. So it's very much sort of a couple of missions here, an hour there sort of thing. It's not consumed my life in the way that I expected it might have done pre-December 10th. I'm still playing Rabbids Go Home. Again, it's a couple of missions here, half an hour there, but that's more because that's really the pace at which that game is fun. Like it's a goofy game. It's a really good laugh. It fills me with more joy than it has any right to every time I shake the remote and the rabbits just go, bah! But the problem is that you've got like 3 inputs. Every level's the same thing. Gotcha. So it's fun to play a couple of levels and then I'll leave it for a few days. So this is either going to be a game I finish in March sort of thing, or that gets retired in the time between now and then. But so far I am enjoying it for what it is. And then the one new playthrough, as we record today, is a PC game called Valley. So that is a first-person platformer. It's all based around the idea of you being in a special suit called a leaf. It's like an exosuit type thing, and you've got 2 abilities mapped to the left and right mouse clicks that draw life from one thing and give that life into something else. I'm not very far in. It seems like that's the core of the puzzling. And then it's all sort of first person jumping and running and everything else. Feels like it's going to go down sort of a Love the Planet story type thing. And if it does, then they've lent on the foreshadowing way too hard. But the mechanics of the thing are fun enough so far. It looks like it's quite a short game. So we'll see how that goes. And that's me. I expect that list will be more fleshed out next week because in the past couple of days I finished Blasphemous and Trover and retired back in Drill Dozer. And that was like more than half of my currently playing lineup. So
nice.
It's a little bit thin on the ground at the moment. It'll be fuller for next week, I should think.
I've heard mixed things about Valley, but yeah.
I was just going to say, by next week, I suspect it will be including one of the games that you're currently playing, Alex, a certain
I can
guess. Greek-themed roguelite.
Yeah, I hate to be a downer.
Okay. I wish I hadn't made that segue.
Yeah, well,
oh no,
I'm playing Hades. So I'm playing Hades, and okay, look, maybe it's because I've played a ton of roguelites, but everyone's always talking about. I think this game has potentially brought on a lot of people who don't play roguelites and are really amazed with what it's doing. And I play the game and I go, yeah, it's a good roguelite. Like, I mean, there's some cool story stuff. It's good. It's a fucking roguelite. Like, I'm just like, I have this one where I'm like, it's the same shit over and over. I'm like, I don't know what, like, everyone's going on and on about like how like revolution. I was like, it's not. It's pretty. Dionysus is my boyfriend. That's about all. Like, and Thanatos. I love them both. They're incredible. But I'm like, what am I missing? Like, everyone like is just heaping so much praise onto the game, and I think it's deserving of a lot of it. Like, it is fun. I like all the weapons. They're fun to play with. I'm gonna die if I have to fight Theseus one more fucking time. I'm just like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm getting to the point where I'm just like, man, I am grinding against a wall here. I've gotten to the like end of the game a few times. I haven't like beaten it yet, technically. So, well, there's no end to this game. I shouldn't say that. Like, you just, because there is, trust me, there's no end to this game. But
okay.
Yeah.
I felt like I'd read that like once you've like quote unquote completed it 10 runs through, that's when you get like the true end.
Yeah,
that might be me misremembering or something, but I get what you're saying. Like, you can play it ad nauseum.
Even if you do, like I said, maybe you get the true ending, right? Even then, the game's not over. Like, you can keep playing it, and you'll still find new dialogue, which is like kind of wild. But I don't know. It's good. I don't think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. I think it's good, and it's worth playing. But like, just temper your expectation. Like, you know what I mean? If you've played roguelites, it is that, roguelike or a roguelite, whatever you want to call it. That's what it is, and it's that to its core. Just go in with that expectation, and you're gonna have a good time. I love Supergiant, so I'm really happy that like they're getting so much success for this, because really, this game was made incredibly well. They took their time, no crunch whatsoever. They make everything for it, all the assets, everything, like the music, the voice acting, it's all wonderful. So I'm really happy that it's getting all this love. It's just, I guess I'm just slightly confused, because like when I play it, it's like, I think it's being overhyped a little bit, So that's what I'll say. If you're really excited about this game and you want to play it, do play it. But maybe go in with just the expectations that it's a roguelike, and that's what you're going to get, Yeah,
I get that. I couldn't agree more in terms of like just being happy that Supergiant are getting some recognition, finally.
Yeah.
Like, I've played all of their stuff. Darren Korb's one of my favourite composers going. Pyre was criminally underrated. Best basketball game ever made.
Yeah. Best fantasy NBA jam.
Yeah, man. But I expect to enjoy it, but I also probably recognise what you're saying, where maybe it's something that people have just been like, oh my god, this exists, and it's not a place of naivety, but maybe even inexperience sounds harsher than what I'm trying to say. Basically, I agree with you. I think where you're coming from, but we'll see when I get around to it. It's the game of the month this month. So
yeah, exactly. Are you gonna play this one, Paula?
I'm not sure, because like, it is game of the month now, so I probably should get around to it. But I also want to get around to playing other things, so I'm like, backlog or new game? Backlog or new game?
This is a good one to maybe just like pop into at some point, like just for a run or two kind of thing. Like, I've been playing it slowly, so maybe that's the issue. But anyway, the other stuff that I'm playing, still Koudelka. Still haven't really touched it whatsoever, but I keep it on my playing because I'm going to get there. And the new game that I'm playing right now is Borderlands 3. I got that in the season pass. And which also, this game has 2 season passes, which is bullshit, because the second one is nothing. The second one is literally nothing really at all. There's like a director's cut of the game or some shit with like it's so stupid. It's that like second season pass has been review bombed hard, and deservedly. But the first one is
there's like a battle royale mode as well, isn't there? As well, that they've like tried to bundle.
Yeah.
In. Like, well, even Activision did that for free with Call of Duty.
2K can suck dick, is what I have to say on that, because they're jerks. Like, first off, the character Reese from Tales of the Borderlands, which is the Telltale game about Borderlands, which is great, by the way. He was voiced by good old famous voice actor guy there. Oh no, what's his name?
Not enough.
No, the other one. Troy Baker. That's it. Yeah. And look, I love
that video games you can just be like, no, the other one.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. And like, he's kind of got like I don't love that there's like this sort of stranglehold on gaming with these two, but like at the same time, he did a great job with that character. And the reason he's not in this game, it's like the guy who did the voice acting for Noctis in Final Fantasy 15. He comes in to voice Reese in this one, and it's because basically 2K was unwilling to negotiate with a union. They just wouldn't do unions for voice actors, which is like shady shit, you know? I'm just like, screw you. You can afford their union. It wasn't even really like, he wasn't even asking for like a lot of money or anything. It was just like for basic like work benefits and like just like the basic stuff that you should be giving your workers. And it was more for everyone involved in voice acting. Like he was like creating a union deal with them. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But the game's great. And it's stupid. It's a dumb game. The story is asinine, but oh my god, the gunplay is great, and that's all I want from it. I just want to pick up sweet guns and shoot people, and oh, it's so satisfying. This is a good short burst game because like you're really just fighting waves and waves of enemies, and you're just shooting them in the fucking head with whatever stuff you've got. So yeah, if you like that kind of gameplay, it's a great game. And I don't know why I held off on it for a long time because I got it on like deep sale basically. I had just like I've played all the Borderlands games and I love them very much, but I don't know what it was. I think Borderlands 3 just came around and I was like, whatever. I mean, it's just Borderlands. And so I think I needed to wait until I was in the mood, you know, which I am now. So anyway, that's what I'm playing. That's it for what I've been playing.
From what we've been playing to what we're planning to play. Takes us quite nicely. Segue. I'm on top of it this year. Not this week, this year. That's ambition is what that is. And speaking of this year, double segue. 2021, what are we planning to do with gaming? Why don't you go first, Paula? You can tell us what you're planning to do once you finish your pesky exams off.
First of all, I want to tackle the game challenge of 2021. Which is like on the forums. There's one user called Finn. I'm gonna butcher the name.
Is that the one you're looking for?
Yeah, Findorf. Thank you. Who, alongside other people in the forums, made this huge list of like little prompts to fill, like a game you previously retired, a random game from your backlog and stuff like that. And I plan to try to beat as many games from for that as possible. And the other thing is like I want to play like at least one non-visual novel game for each visual novel I play because oh my god. And I have like a little list of stuff that I want to tackle. Like, obviously, 13 Sentinel Psychic Stream is gonna get a lot of attention once these godforsaken exams are over.
That's good to hear.
I have like a little list of 2021 releases that I want to tackle like day one. And everything else can kind of wait. On the release schedule, pretty much. And I want to tackle like a couple of game series. One of them is the Science Adventure series, and that is like the Chaos Head, Steins Gate, and Robotic Notes trilogy with their sequels and stuff. Because I am like a big fan of Steins Gate, and I watched like the anime of the other two games, but I know that the visual novel tell a bigger story, and all the games are like interconnected, like in the same universe.
Well, you might like what one of my goals is later, but
I also want to play. I want to marathon the Fire Emblem series because it seems I'm a masochist.
Rather than
I also want to beat like a bunch of RPGs because I haven't beaten like a lot of long JRPGs during the last year. So like Ni no Kuni, Token Mirror Stations, Sharp-F. I'm currently replaying Persona 4 and Team Tensei 4. And hopefully I get those two done before Team Tensei 5.
Wow. I think you'll have plenty of time for that one, in fairness. It's because that I would like to think that's going to come out this calendar year. But I would be surprised if it comes out this calendar year. Let's put it that way. But what have you got on your list for 2021 releases? Because I'll come to it in a minute. I'm completely gone in terms of what's actually coming out this year.
So since a lot of the games that I was looking forward to are like sequels, I'm like, okay, those can wait. I won't buy those unless it's like the Breath of the Wild sequel. If it magically comes out this year. So the releases that are mostly like Otome and Timami Tensei 3 and 5 that are like the ones like I'm gonna try to play like day one so they don't pile up in the backlog.
Yeah.
And those are 8 games. And I have to add Tsukihime because, like, you know how I said, like, if there was a remake of it, I will give it a second chance. Well,
And
there's a
literally
remake
the
of
day
it.
later. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm pretty much obligated to. I am completely obligated to get Tsukihime Day One, probably in Japanese, because by that point, I should be able to read more or less fluently, or more fluently than I am reading now.
Yeah, and maybe that's at least like something to make you feel a bit better about having to play it again. Is at least you'd be like using it as a learning exercise as well.
Yeah, and the friend that recommended the game was like so hyped up, like so hyped for the remake, and he was like, "I don't care, I'm gonna play in Japanese, even though if I have to write line for line in Google Translate to understand what the hell is going on, I'm gonna play it." So I'm like, okay, guess I'm suffering together here. Guess we're suffering together in the Japanese game corner here. So yeah, besides that, like, I play some Zelda games because, like, as much as I love Zelda, for some reason, I played a lot of Zelda, but not finished a lot of Zelda. So Skyward Sword is high on the list there because, like, I actually got to pretty much the end of the game, forget the controls, and like, welp.
That's heavy, especially when you get far in. I think we've all been there where we've like started partway through a game and then you just forget what's going on. It's like, well, gonna have to start the whole fucker again now.
Yeah,
pretty much.
I've been there too many times.
I think I'm past like the second. What's the name of this section of the game? Trial. Oh, beautiful! I forget how the section of the game is called. But it's like where you like collect these tears of like in Twilight Princess.
Oh, okay.
Just for the record, I hate this game. But yeah, I'm glad you're trying it again. I don't hate this game. That's too much, actually. It's just not my favorite. It's my least favorite 3D Zelda game. I'll put it that way.
I have yet to play it. I retired Twilight Princess because of those tears, though. Fuck that. Like, genuinely, like 10-year-old me just got sick of it. But yeah,
just gonna say, like, Skyward Sword gets a lot of hate between the motion controls, that it is a more linear Zelda game, the tears segment. I am having a blast. No problems with the motion controls. The characters are so enjoyable. Like, so there's like a couple of you don't have like the classic Sora or the, well, you have a Gorn like walking around, but the creatures that inhabit the world are like are different from like the usual ones. So you have the Paula that are like these jellyfish seahorse kind of thing. And I was talking to one in particular, and she was an asshole. She was dissing me. It was like, what have I done to you?
Honestly, I never had problem with the motion controls. It's just the linearity. It was just so mind-numbingly linear, like for a Zelda game. But I don't know. What do I know?
Wow, that's a good question.
I actually enjoyed the linearity, maybe because I remember before playing Skyward Sword, I was just like finishing up like Ocarina of Time. Before I started the replay, I think I was like trying to play another Zelda game. Probably was like Majora's Mask because I replayed that one a lot. So having like a more linear story, and there's still like a lot of exploration to do, to be honest. Like, you don't open up like new places, but you can like revisit like places you've already been at, but find like that hidden object that was like at the top of a cliff that you couldn't get to because you didn't have the glass shot and stuff like that. And again, for me, the writing in the game, the characters, the world, they make the game for me pretty much. Well, it may also have something to do because I'm streaming the game to my boyfriend using a capture card, and I'm like voice acting the game, so
Oh dear.
that might be the reason why I find it like way more fun than it should be.
You have to revive that YouTube career, Paula.
There you go.
Share it for the
Come on.
world. Have you got anything else you're planning to do in 2021 before we tag
So-
Alex back in?
So Fire Emblem Marathon, Science Adventures Marathon, and tackle the Japanese imported games that I have before they get released in English.
So
Yeah.
you don't feel too bad about them.
Pretty much. So I think that's my plan for next year.
Nice.
That's your 2021. What about you, Alex?
Yeah, so for me, actually, inspired by you a little bit, Paula, I wanted to try. I want to try visual novel. Like I've played visual novel adjacent games, like I've done like the Ace Attorneys and like all those. But I actually was gonna. I bought Steins Gate a long time ago on the Switch because I loved that anime, and I was like, oh, I should try this out. I always hear about these games, so this year I think I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna do it. Play that Steins Gate. I think it's Steins Gate Elite. Is it the one I have? Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, they
the
added
one
like
for
an 8-bit thing, didn't they?
no, the one on the Switch is Steins Gate Elite that has like the visuals from the anime.
Mm.
And I have it too. I plan to play both Steins Gate and Steins Gate Elite to make like the comparison.
Mm.
Because I'm kind of curious. I heard that the writing between the two is kind of different,
Interesting.
but I honestly would be talking out of my ass if I say like how the two games are different. I just know that they tell the same story. I know that Elite has some scenes, but I know they're a little bit different beyond that, but I don't know how.
Okay.
Mm.
Well, I'm gonna try
I
them
think
out.
anyway. So,
Yeah, because there's also
Either way, you're-
oh, sorry. When I bought it, it came with the 8-bit adventure one, which I hear is kind
I
of
was just saying,
adorable. Yeah.
I knew there was something like that in the package.
I am so sad because like if you want like all the little Steins Gate games that come like with Steins Gate Elite, I think you have to buy like at least 2 versions of the game because the one for PC is different from the one for Switch. I'm like,
I think so. Yeah.
That's such a sucky business practice.
I gotta say though, the 8-bit
Yeah.
adventure game is like a full-fledged game. Like it's like 8 or 9 hours or something like that. Like it's
I like that.
yeah.
I always loved when both Leighton used to do that with like the little mini games they had in each series,
Mm-hmm.
and the Danganronpa games
Mm-hmm.
where they have just like a random school management bit in the middle, just stupid stuff like that. It's when Love's put in, it's just a really nice bonus to find at the end. I'm
Yeah.
all about
Well,
that.
the 8-bit one is like straight up a separate download.
Oh shit!
Yeah. Like
Okay.
I mean, like it's legit a full game. So anyway, I'm looking forward to trying that out. I just want to I want to step my foot very softly into into this world, and like see what I got here and see what's going on in it. Other than that,
look forward to it.
yeah, or no, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's only like 2-3 hours, whatever. It's a lot. It's still a full-fledged thing that was free. It's whatever. So I want to do, so last year I did like when I had a backlog blog, which I still have, I guess, but I haven't touched it because, podcast. I started last year by like really diving into the GBA kind of backlog and I guess Game Boy a little bit, but mostly the Game Boy Advance. And I feel like I've really, I've explored it, like there's still games I want to play, but I'm kind of thinking like, throughout the years, maybe I'll touch them. But I feel like I've kind of hit like pay dirt in that sort of handheld, and I've really explored it nicely. And so what I want to do now is look at the PlayStation 1, because there's a lot of games on that I find are really fascinating. There's a lot that I probably won't touch because it's kind of like the early era, figuring out how 3D works. But like Koudelka's one, I really want to play Snatcher and Police Knots. and those aren't really like, some of them are on the PlayStation 1, some are on like Sega Saturn and stuff like that, but it's that era, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that gen.
Yeah, that gen, because I think the English localizations are only on like the Sega Saturn or whatever, but and Parasite Eve and stuff like that. Like I just kind of want to try those games out, like from that sort of time frame. Whether they're specifically on the PlayStation or not, who knows? But that's what I want to do. And I'm going to do those on my Retroid Pocket 2, right? I was like, that's what I want to use that for. I also want to start the Yakuza franchise because I've always sort of avoided it for some reason, like thinking that I wouldn't like it, but I loved Sleeping Dogs. And so I'm like, Sleeping Dogs was just actually, Sleeping Dogs might be a little something to talk about coming up in our question. I'll write that down. It'll make sense when I
was more
share
thinking of the irony with Sleeping Dogs waking Molly.
Waking Molly. Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah, I don't have a sleeping dog right now. That dog is very awake.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, so I want to do that, and I kind of want to play some older classics that I've wanted to go back to. Like, you know, I've been doing that with Knights of the Old Republic 2, and like obviously I'm going to go through Game Pass, and I've been playing games on there. I'm trying to play like a Game Pass game a month right now, just to sort of, not because I want to like get my money's worth, but just because I want to challenge myself to sort of explore slightly different games, and that's what's nice for Game Pass. So that's sort of been a thing that I'm doing. But I also want to go back to like Fallout New Vegas, because like when I booted up my Xbox Series X, suddenly I had all my old Xbox games on there, and like Fallout New Vegas is still like, you know, it's on Game Pass, but I had all of the DLC as well. And I was like, man, I want to go back on that game. And then I want to do the Dead Space games again, because I was like, I haven't played Dead Space 3, but I'm like, maybe I should just go back and play Dead Space 1 and 2 again, because I love those games, and then go play 3. So that's kind of me. Like, I'm going to have a loose year, but the things that I really do want to make sure I get done is I want to play Steins Gate. I want to play the Yakuza franchise. Not all of it, but I want to at least start it. And I want to delve a little more into the PS1 games. That's where I'm at.
Nice. And if you do go back to Dead Space, I cannot highly enough recommending digging out a Wii and a copy of Dead Space Extraction, aka the best light gun game made in years.
Oh, I
really
remember playing
good.
that. Yeah, it's a good light gun game. I remember playing that. That's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, and weirdly enough, that's what got me into Dead Space, because at the time I had a Wii and I didn't have a PS3. And I think I picked it up on a whim, really enjoyed it, and then when I got a PS3, I've played 1, I've got 2 and 3 to get to eventually. So you never know, we might overlap. Because to bring it sort of back around to what we're doing next year, I'm sort of very much looking forward to looking back as well. So I'm basically planning to buy nothing this year. So I've got a pre-order for the deluxe copy of East 9, which comes out next month. And I may give myself a Steam sale exception, maybe. But that's it. Like I'm not really planning to buy any new games. The intention is to dig through some of the stuff that I've picked up over the past few years, because it looked great and I wanted to play it, but for one reason or another I haven't actually played. So there's quite a few Wii games sat on my shelf, and I've got the Wii set up at the moment, so I'd quite like to play through a few of those, including Skyward Sword. So at the moment it's Rabbids Go Home. The next one on the list is actually Warrior Land the Shake Dimension. I think it's called something slightly different in the US.
I think it's
like a
Shake Land or something like that, but maybe it is Shake
Dimension. Might be Shake It. It's the Shake Dimension in the EU.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I knew it was something slightly different, but with the word shake in other territories. But I love the 2D Wario games. I've still got to play 4 on GBA, actually. But the Wii one's one I'd seen for a long time and never picked up, and it ended up being a bargain hunt on eBay, so I want to get to that because the Wii's set up. There's quite a few PS2 games that I've had set up on my emulator for a long time that I just haven't got around to. The three that spring to mind immediately are PS2 Shinobi, the one from like 2003, because I remember playing a demo disc at the time and loving that first level, just never bought the game. God Hand, and Grim Grimoire, which is like the one gap in my vanilla knowledge. No, that's a lie, actually, because they have Princess Crown as well, but that's a bit of a weird one, because the only way you can play that is either following sort of a fan guide with the original Saturn version, or there's a not amazing PSP port that I think someone's fan translated. The stupid thing is they ported it to PS4 as a bonus for the Japanese release of 13 Sentinels. Didn't think to bring it to us poor fuckers in the English-speaking world, though, did they? I would have happily paid for it as a separate thing. I just want to play it. But that's a tangent. So there's Wii stuff, my PS2 emulator setup stuff. I want to try and crack through some more of the physicals I have on PSP and DS and 3DS and Vita. And also PS3, talking about Dead Space, I've got like 3 or 4 Ratchet and Clank games that I still haven't got around to playing. It's one of my favourite franchises, and those games have just been sat on my shelf for time. So in the next couple of weeks, I've got Future Tools of Destruction like sat in the console ready to go. So we'll be talking about that one soon. But the broad theme is just a case of exploring the library that I've already built up and not necessarily giving myself permission to play those games, but restricting myself from putting more on top of the pile and just sort of taking from the bottom instead for a year. Especially because most of the hype's going to be around the new consoles anyway, and I'm exactly the same as you, Alex. In terms of PS5s, I certainly won't be looking at it until the new model comes out where they fix whatever glaring flaw there is with this. Yeah, to tie it on a bow, I don't even really know what's coming out this year. I haven't kept track of it. Anything that I had kept track of probably would have changed with the global events that are going on anyway. So I'm looking forward to spending a year just enjoying what I've got, and then I suppose maybe this time next year we'll see what the landscape's like in terms of things coming up, and then I can start getting excited about hopefully picking up those games for a reasonable price by the time I get around to them.
Nice. Yeah, that's my plan too. Well, why don't we move along then?
Yes.
To our question of the week, which comes from forum user Elusera, who says, and they wrote a nice email to us, which you can always do. You can send to hltbpodcast@gmail.com. And they say, hey, guys and girl, I was curious to see what your thoughts were on game clones. When a new big thing or mechanic comes up, it will inevitably start up a trend. In the 2020 Game of the Year thread, the Oro44 mentioned enjoying Dante's Inferno very much, even though it was regarded as a God of War knockoff. I saw my sister play through this, and I agree that it's good, but it still has that label. I'm also sure you've seen your own share of shameless clones. Then there's a common comment that insert random game doesn't accomplish anything new. So, do you think cloning is something the industry should stay away from to focus on evolving? Or on the flip side, without it, we wouldn't find our way to something good? Are there any particular clones you like or dislike, or maybe are there any games out there that you wish creators would imitate? I feel like I just gave you an essay prompt, but I'm just curious about your opinions in general. Love the new episodes. Thank you for that question. There's a whole lot there. We'll see what we can tackle.
I suppose I'll jump in to start, because actually, for anyone who listened last week, my quote-unquote game of the year was Ghost of Tsushima, which is arguably open world games the clone. But I think there's something to be said for doing things that have already been done but refining. I don't think it's necessarily as simple as saying X is a clone, Y isn't a clone. There are obviously sort of clearer cut examples. I think Dante's Inferno probably from the off was designed as God of War is sexy, God of War sells copies, let's make something like that. But even then you could argue with its own setting, they had some kind of a morality system that tied into the ending. It did certain things that made it relevant in its own right. And ultimately, if it's still a good game, which I haven't played it, but all signs seem to point to it being, does it really matter? I think especially with more and more people getting into games, the landscape's big enough that there's room for lots of things doing similar stuff. You know, like there's room for a Breath of the Wild and a Genshin Impact and an Immortals Phoenix Rising, which all ostensibly have the same mechanics, but they all also do things slightly differently, whether it's in terms of story or business model or setting, slight variations in those themes. I think there's room for all of that as more people come to the hobby. But I also think that where something is truly shameless, I think that shines through. And I think it's something where we shouldn't necessarily worry too much. We should just trust consumers to be a little bit savvier about it and just hope that the good stuff shines through. particularly because if you let multiple people have cracks at those kinds of things, that's where new innovations and refinements and improvements come along. I think there's something to be said for that. You can't necessarily say everything has to be brand new. I don't believe there is such a thing. I think we stand on the shoulders of what's come before always.
Yeah, because arguably games like Rock Band, for instance, it's just a clone of Guitar Hero, but then they expanded it, right? And so it's like, sometimes the clone is needed because it allows you to take something that works and expand, right? It's
almost yes-anding.
Exactly. Actually, it really is like that. And I mean, something I think too, though, it's like now that you were mentioning it, and I didn't realize I sort of thought this until you were talking about it, but I kind of wish that the smaller studios were the ones who would do this sort of like kind of clone work. And I would prefer that bigger studios avoid it more. And only because, like, for instance, Immortals Phoenix Rising, I'm actually quite curious about the game because it looks to me like just sort of the fun, except, Ubisoft is trash. But but I do think it looks sort of fun and interesting. And I'm like, oh, that looks sort of breezy and not a big deal. But I also find it feels a little cash grabby because you're making this all right, Molly, you're making this game that clearly it's just kind of hey, it's Breath of the Wild, but kind of with our Assassin's Creed stuff. We can't rip off ourselves, right? So that's kind of where I'm you know what I mean? Can you really rip off yourself? I guess not. But at the same time, I prefer things like Oceanhorn, right? Which is this small studio that made this kind of Link to the Past, but also sort of Wind Waker clone that is basically Legend of Zelda, but it's really nice and it's fun and it fills that sort of that niche or that kind of gap that you want where you're I just want to play a game that's sort of like Zelda, and then you get to play this little game like that, or something like Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, right? Which is basically Castlevania, except is so much better than all the old Castlevanias. I love that game so much. I played that game so much, and I don't even have any nostalgia for old Castlevanias. I hadn't played any old Castlevanias, and I played through on every character, every mission mode, everything. I played that to death. And I don't know, I could keep going on and on. Even something like Greedfall, right? I know I shit on Greedfall a little bit, but I genuinely think it's a cool kind of it's like a clone of BioWare's older games, but they're trying this darker and different ideas in it. And I'm I think there's such a good place for these smaller AA or even indie studios to come in and fill in that, or Bug Fables, right? The Paper Mario clone. Yeah, it's a clone of Paper Mario, and it's more like the older ones, like Thousand Year Door and the original Paper Mario, and apparently it's fantastic, but it does its own thing. And I'm I don't know, I love that, right?
Yeah, I suppose from the model sense, when you're putting a lot of money in, you sort of want to cut lowest common denominator. So I think it's always going to be that a smaller, more agile studio can afford to take risks on changes, where if you're employing 500 people and spending X hundred of millions of dollars, you're probably less inclined to do it, as much as that's frustrating as a consumer. I would like to pull back on what you said about Greedfall, though, because I think when we're talking about clones, it's important to remember that the packaging counts too. So whether that's Tsushima, that's every open world, but it's in medieval Japan and it's very authentic to that historical setting, or it's Greedfall, where it's most open world RPG, semi sort of consequential stuff you've played, but it's set in proper colonialism and it challenges all of the moral stuff around that. I haven't, but
that shit is a clone, and I love it, but it is a clone, 100%.
It's on PS Plus this month, so I might actually give it a crack.
And I don't even mean that in a negative way. I sometimes think clone is you're being compared to good and sometimes the greatest games. So you know what I mean? That's where I say where I go but trust me, when you play it, but it's a fantasy colonial world. Just so you know, it's not colonialism, it's fantasy colonialism.
It's based on a true colonialism.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's the way I would put it. It's based on how colonialism works. But I would just say that I don't always think being a clone of something is a negative. It's if you're compared to being Breath of the Wild, it's yeah, that's a great game. And by the way, Breath of the Wild is a clone of Assassin's Creed and Far Cry. They took you know what I mean? They took those mechanics and they upgraded them. And I think that's that's what art is, right? Steal good shit and make it better.
Yeah, basically, I think we're more or less on the same page with that. What about you, Paula?
It's like learning and draw on someone else's style and then make your own thing from the things you like.
Yeah, as long as you're not just tracing.
Exactly. So, regarding clones, like, as long as it isn't like a shameless clone that you can tell that they literally like slaps another name on the box, I'm very okay with them because, as you both have said, video games that get inspired by other video games are able to explore the mechanics in a different way. I haven't played Genshin Impact, but I have watched my boyfriend play it, and I actually think, like, combat-wise, is a little bit closer to Xenoblade, but to a basic level. In the sense of, at least in Xenoblade 2, like, where you can change combos, like, based on elements and stuff. In Genshin Impact, you can change combos, but it has the little quirk that some elements negate each other completely. As in, you can make more damage to an enemy, not if you hit its weakness, but if you combine, for example, I think it was like electricity and fire and mix like a huge explosion and you make extra damage and stuff like that.
Yeah, it does its own things in and around it. You're exactly right.
Yeah. As for Immortals Phoenix Rising, I haven't played it, sadly, but from what I've seen, like from the trailers and from my, it kind of looks like if you mix like Breath of the Wild's open world with God of War's kind of like inspirations on mythology, because like there was like a particular scene that was like, hey, what the hell? Am I playing like God of War on the PS4? Or like God of War in the I don't know which one, but there was like one scene that was like you could overlap it and it's the same game.
I'll be honest with you, that game, Immortals, it's Breath of the Wild meets Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Like, I've played Odyssey through and through, and watching some of it, I'm like, that's Odyssey's combat, Odyssey's humor, Odyssey's stuff. And like, not even to like shame it, I'm just like, you guys made Odyssey, so I mean, it's on, like, sure. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's the or at least part.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same company. I don't think it's the studio that made Odyssey that made this one, but
I think
way.
it's an internal offshoot that started working on this game, and it became something separate. Yeah. That's my understanding. But when you were talking about it, I had a flashback to. Are either of you aware of the game Ninja Bread Man on the Wii?
Yeah, actually, yes, I am. Because Scott the Woz does the thing on these, doesn't he?
He does. Now this game is.
From a WiiWare episode? Pardon? Is it from like a shovelware or WiiWare?
A shovelware episode. Yeah, it's from a shovelware episode.
It was something. The reason I bring it up, just on the topic of clones, this is probably the closest thing I know of to an actual clone.
Yeah.
So this company made 4 games: Ninja Bread Man, Anubis 2. Bear in mind there was never an Anubis 1. Mythmakers, Tricks and Twins, and Rock and Roll Adventures. They are all the same game. It's literally a reskin. It's literally a reskin. Down to the point that the exact same bugs where you can clip out of most of the world exist.
Flashbacks are...
Well, there you go.
The flashbacks are... I know what game are you talking about.
If people want to learn about this, go watch Scott the Woz's shovelware episodes on the Wii and you'll see it.
Yeah, I think there might even be a re-res video on. I think the re-res one is what I'm thinking about. I'm almost certain because they did one quite recently.
Nice.
It will be on YouTube on somebody's channel.
Yeah.
So that I feel like is the bar at which clone becomes a problem when you've released your own game 4 times. I think you don't actually have to go very far beyond that to be sort of in the realms of acceptability. That's
and honestly, and I love it. I think we all sort of agree. And ultimately, cloning a good idea does not always make a good game. Mighty Number 9, anyone?
No, that's true. Wow. Something gamer on prom night.
I am so happy I didn't pre-order that game.
Yeah.
Like I am probably like one of the 5 people like in my hometown that own a Wii U, and I am so happy that I was like, well, I heard that this game is in development hell, so I'm gonna skip on it.
Good.
Get
Smart.
I am
this,
so.
Imagine if you were one of the people that pre-ordered the 3DS version that never came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, they're probably happier.
Oh.
Than the ones who had to play it. Yeah. Anyway, so that's our thoughts. I'm sure we could talk even more about this. It's a great question, but one other clone that I think is a good clone, Shadow of War, kind of cloned some of Batman Arkham Asylum. Like it took that kind of combat and then it upped it. It just like created the Nemesis system and it just created this like cool thing, you know? Like, I don't know. I think we can agree, like if a game takes another game's idea and then evolves it, that's awesome. You know, that's just good shit.
Yeah. That's a beautiful bow to tie on that. I like that.
Nice. Let's go on then to our How Long to Beat the Game. I've got it loaded up here if you want to rock in. Okay. Let's get ready. It's loading.
How are we gonna fail this week?
It's loading.
Speak for yourself.
Actually,
Oh,
Godfall.
Really?
Yeah.
let's do it.
Which is quite new, and I know nothing about this game.
Yeah.
Okay. I know that it's
Oh.
like,
Neither.
isn't it sort of an arena-ish battler?
It's Destiny, but melee combat. Is my
Yeah.
understanding. And also not very good.
Yeah, I heard
Yeah.
it's not good at all. How long does this game take to beat is the question.
It is.
I think
That's right. Well done,
Yeah.
Alex.
it's super recent games. We're good here.
Oh, it's so recent
I-
too, right? Yeah. But apparently enough people have played it because Everjet set up a really good system so that there's definitely been, it has 25 or more completions. So,
Yeah. 25
ah.
or more mugs that bought that game on lunch. Hey.
Sorry
Right,
to
I'm gonna
sorry
go-
to the 25 or more.
Yeah.
Wait,
well,
actually released like almost 2 months ago. Huh.
Yeah, it's been
yeah,
out
well,
for a
time
while.
flies, isn't it? That was back in the dark times of 2020.
Oh God, I don't even have a goddamn clue. I think I'm gonna
go.
Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
Go on.
No,
No, it's all right.
no,
said
you
first.
go. I got nothing. I feel like this is one of those 20 hours ish games. You know, like I have that feeling that it's in that world.
Mhm.
Then again, it could be super short. Like I just don't know. It's like a first. No, you know what? Maybe it's short as shit. I'm gonna go with 13 hours for main.
Ooh.
I'm gonna go with
Mhm.
13 main. I'm gonna say 18 main plus.
Interesting.
I'm gonna say
Main
30
plus.
complete.
Oh, he's going for all of it. Okay.
Oh, because I have no idea. I need that 5 hour
30
grace
hours.
period.
Yeah, I feel that. I'm going to be a little bit more conservative. I'm saying 17 hours main, 22 hours main plus. But it really is sort of stabs in the dark. I'm exactly where you are, where I think it's like a 15, 20 hour sort of thing.
Mm.
Trying to think here. I'm trying like to remember the trailers of the game on the gameplay I watched.
Gotta go for it.
So I'm gonna say 15 for main,
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
20 for main plus, 35 for 100%.
Interesting. Okay. So everyone's gone all out apart from me. Double check you're happy with those times, and then we'll plug
Yeah, I'm happy with them.
I'm
I mean,
happy.
I'm not, but I am. All right.
on. Happy enough. Happy enough.
All
Happy
right.
enough, yeah.
Right.
Here we go.
So,
Okay, so. Oh,
totally
God.
look it up now.
Dang it! I think you might have done it, Rick. Oh, no, you didn't. We all failed, I think. Except maybe.
Yeah, we have.
So,
Why
main
would you give me
story
that nugget
is
of
12
money?
and a half hours.
No,
So
I've blown that.
I was
Okay.
like right on the money for main. Main plus
Yeah.
extra is 15 and a half hours.
You're
I
on for
was
that.
in the range, and then I went
Ah.
greedy.
I was
Why did
right
I
on
have
that one
to
too.
do it?
But I was off on completionist, which is 20 hours.
Yeah,
Oh, it's really short.
Yeah.
it is
Wow,
really
The
okay.
short.
completionist, to be fair, is in red, so I don't know. It maybe
So
it is
that
longer.
you're blaming Everdread for that, L, are you?
Oh, well, that's not Everdread's fault. There's only been one completionist.
Like, I was thinking that the Godfather will be like longer or anything because I saw that there was like
now I'm
lot
kicking
of
myself. If I'd only done 2 of them, I would have won this. Dang it. Gambling.
Yeah.
Ah! Oh, well. That was a good one. That was a good one to have. And what's its review score right now? 61. That's not bad, actually.
Better than I expected.
That's average.
61, that's above average, I think. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for this week. Happy New Year, everybody. We'll see you next week, as usual on Thursday.
Hopefully, Paula has beaten some games. Bye.